Welcome, everyone, to the final episode of His Name Was Bob. Now, heads up, the next couple of chapters are rough, and I've put a content warning on the screen because there is going to be surgery without anesthetic, and I'm going to act my little heart out, and that may be triggering because the acting will be really bad, or because I'll be like, oh, it hurts so bad. So I'll try to do it without laughing at my own terrible acting. But yes, it's gonna be angsty and it's gonna be rough. So heads up, if you want to skip ahead, yeah. Anyway, so you've been warned. I am live streaming this on Discord, so thank you to everybody on Discord who joined in for the live stream. It's lovely having you here, and I'll try not to think about the fact that I'm in front of an audience because it tends to make me mess up my words more. So, without further ado, and with a puppy that is asleep on my lap and complaining about it, His Name Was Bob by Llewellyn. Chapter 40. Static. Again, trigger warning. Surgery without anesthesia. New art by Calcium Cat. A picture of Bob on the dashboard of a car. Your point of view. Wednesday. Today's the day. You are still not okay with any of this. But Bob was right. This isn't really up to you, is it? You didn't sleep at all. You are operating on automatic. Seems almost like you're dreaming. It's not a good dream. Automatic. Shower. Brush teeth. Make breakfast for you and Bob. You remember the first time you made breakfast for the two of you. He had broken one of your plates. There was still a tiny nick in the cheap linoleum floor from that. How long ago had it been now? A few months? A year? It didn't seem like all that long ago when you two had first met. And yet, it was becoming harder and harder to remember a time before him. He had been so small, broken, angry, afraid, wary of others. Like you. You looked down at him as he ate, leaning against your arm. He had hardly broken physical contact with you since you all had talked the night before. Still small, but brave, strong. Hadn't he always been like this? Even at the beginning? How had you never noticed? How could he have ever called himself a coward? Breakfast finished, plates in the sink. Walk towards the door, put on your hoodie. Bob appears on your shoulder. You don't even jump when that happens anymore. He's tugging your hair to get your attention as you turn the door handle, pointing toward the counter. Oh, the car keys. You might need those. Outside, lock the door. It's cold. You can see your breath. Neighbors are yelling at each other. Too early for that. Pine needles crunch under your feet. Unlock the car. Bob's on the dashboard, yet again leaving little bony butt prints in the dust there. Will this be the last time? Don't think of that. Swallow the lump in your throat. Be brave. He's not crying or acting scared. You notice he's looking at you. His eye dots are hazy. He didn't sleep either. You force a smile. He smiles back. It's about as realistic as your smile. Most people would think he's always smiling. He's not. Not always. How can others not tell? You arrive at the clinic too soon. You're early. The lights are on. Dr. Rivera and Gary are there already, too. It looks like they've been there for a while. The bell on the door jingles as you walk through. Gary nods at you. Dr. Rivera is sitting beside him at the desk, poring over one of his large medical textbooks. "So, Doc," Bob says. It occurs to you the first thing he has said all morning. "You ready to get this thing out of my head?" Dr. Rivera looks up. He nods, fixes his glasses, coughs, holds up a finger, gags, and then covers his mouth and bolts for the restroom. Well, that's not a good sign. Bob looks warily in the direction of the retching sounds. He didn't sleep much, Gary says, his forehead creased as he looks in the direction of his husband. He has bags under his eyes, not his usual bright, chipper self. He replaces his worried expression with a forced smile. Not to worry, not to worry. If anyone can do this surgery, Miguel can. He's been studying similar procedures since the idea was proposed. This will go okay. This is fine. Things are going to be fine. Just fine. His voice cracks a little. You aren't sure who he's trying to convince. Dr. Rivera emerges from the bathroom, wiping the water off of his mouth, and now pale face before replacing his glasses. Sorry about that. Shall we get prepped? He asks, motioning toward the surgery suite. Dread fills you. You notice surgery has already been set up. Strips of tape for restraint. A hand towel to prop his skull. Scrub. Bone putty. Dental drill. You feel a wave of dizziness and have to briefly stabilize yourself on the door frame. Bob pats your shoulder, giving you a concerned look. How could he even be concerned for you at a time like this? Will you need a chair? Gary asks you. No! You almost snap at him. This wasn't about you at all. It was about Bob. And he just sits on your shoulder, calmly looking over at the stuff laid out for the procedure. His procedure. You remember where to bring my chip, in case... He asks quietly, trailing off. I remember, you answer, swallowing. How can he be so calm? He takes a deep breath and lets it out. All right, let's do this. All right, again, trigger warning. This is surgery without anesthesia. Let me drink some coffee for this. You ready, Maxie? It's time for the angst. It's time for the angst, Maxie. Brace for angst. All right. Bob's point of view. Pain. Nothing could really have prepared him for it. It takes and strips him down to his most basic animalistic form, fighting and clawing, trying to make it stop. He's not himself anymore. The pain takes over his whole being. He's strapped and held down to the table. Trapped. He can't make the pain stop. His life is nothing but blinding pain and noise, a high-pitched whir, a grinding. He tries to maintain control. He knows he has to hold still, but it's too much. He wants it to stop, just take a break. But he knows he can't. He's bleeding. He grits his teeth to almost the chipping point and resists the urge to break free and just escape or scream. Get away from it. Make it stop. But he can't. It's like fighting a war, his soul versus his own bodily senses. At the worst points, he feels like he wants to escape from his own body, just to stop the pain. But he distantly knows that if he escapes, that's it. There's no coming back. Where would he even go? Would there be anywhere else besides his body? Or just nothingness? Right now, in this delirious state, he'd probably accept whatever came next. Stay with me, a distant voice says. He snaps back to reality. He's squeezing his eyes shut and gritting his teeth. Part of him wants to reassure that voice, the most important voice in the world to him. But he can't say anything back. All there is now is the pain. He feels sick, but can't even retch. Biddies aren't made for that. He can't do anything. He can't even control the screaming that finally escapes. It's almost like watching things happen from a distance. No control, but still being able to feel everything. Until he can't even scream anymore. Finally Finally, it stops. Everything just stops. And then there's a quiet sort of static, like snow falling around him. It's almost peaceful. Just the cold snow and the quiet. And then there's nothing. Dun 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 dun. Alright, what do you think, Maxie, huh? We have a new picture. I have an ominous, picture to switch it for. Hold up. There we go. There's the second picture by, Calcium Cat. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough, folks. It's rough. Oh, I have, a bonus picture I drew of Spot, by the way. I'll show you that at the end, but right now it's time for sadness. Chapter 41. Bob, was it? Second to last chapter, almost done. He checked his watch for the 100th time and stayed. I already messed up. Sorry, coffee. He checked his watch for the 100th time, and same as the previous times in the last 10 minutes, it told him that this biddy meeting him was late. He sighed, flicking an errant crumb off the sticky diner table. A waitress checked to make sure, yet again, that yes, he was still waiting for someone to join him, and no, he wouldn't be ordering anything yet besides the coffee he was drinking. And no, he didn't need a refill, but thanks. Coffee. She walked away, giving him a look of pity. She thought he was being stood up by some date. Ha, that might have been a better scenario than who he was actually waiting for. At least he would have been stood up by an almost date, and not one of the products his company made. Sigh. He fiddled with his watch as he checked it yet again. 3:12 p.m. The watch was a nice watch. His parents had given it to him as a graduation gift. It was just nice enough that he could wear it at work, but not too nice as to be too flashy. He didn't like flaunting wealth. Not that he was particularly wealthy, but he wasn't poor either. Admittedly, he did feel kind of out of place sitting in a diner alone at around 3-ish on a Wednesday. Maybe he should call the person, or Biddy, or whoever back and see if they forgot? No, whoever had called him said not to call. He didn't want to scare them off. He really needed this microchip. As he sat wondering how long he should wait for, well, whoever was supposed to meet him, he saw someone walk into the diner wearing a hoodie and what looked like scrub pants. Dustin was definitely overdressed if this is what the typical diner patrons wore. As this person didn't appear to have a biddy with them, he doubted they were who he was waiting for. They probably came in for some coffee or something. They looked kinda rough for their likely young 20-ish age. Dustin looked away and back at the table, straightening his menu and taking a sip of his coffee. Seemed they served breakfast here all day, and apparently served the best omelets in town since 1947, if the menu was to be believed. Are you from Utigen? Dustin looked up to see the hoodie kid standing at the side of his table, sort of staring through him. He now noticed their eyes were puffy and bloodshot, their hair sticking up from where they pulled off their hood. Rough was definitely the word for the kid, though they didn't sound like the person who had contacted him before. But they knew he worked for Utigen. It had to be them. What was his voice? It was like, yes, you must be... sorry, I didn't catch your name. Dustin extended his hand for a handshake, but the person flinched backwards, so he instead motioned to the chair across the table from him. "It doesn't matter," they said, sinking down into the chair, and again, not really looking at him. They took a small pill vial out of their pocket and slid it across the table to him. It was coated in fine dust. The person noticed this too, and that it was on their fingers. They started trying to wipe it off on their hoodie. Dustin picked up the pill vial, and something tiny rattled inside. Was this it? Could he dare hope? He quickly popped off the lid and carefully dumped the rice-sized microchip into his hand. Just as carefully, he brought the scanner out of his bag and scanned it. This was it! The missing chip! Dustin gulped, trying to remain professional when he wanted to smile and cheer. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my career. I appreciate you returning Eudigen's property." The person wasn't looking at him and continued to absently wipe their dusty fingers on their hoodie. From the looks of it, I understand you were quite attached to the, found property." Wipe. Oh man, this person was visibly upset and seemed almost in shock. People really did become attached to the Bitty product. And Dustin never really dealt with customers directly like this. He didn't know what to say. But he could at least try? "Of course, I'm still willing to offer some sort of compensation." No. Wipe. Still staring off. "No?" Well, who was he to look a gift horse in the mouth? "Well, okay. Again, I appreciate your honesty." Well, that was that. He started to stand up to leave and added, "I'm sorry your product, broke. If you ever change your mind and want a replacement, the offer for compensation still stands. I understand you still have my number. We have a new line coming out in—" "Bob," the person said, finally looking up. "I'm sorry." His name. Bob. He was never a product. Nothing could ever replace him. The person was now staring at Dustin intently, angry tears starting to form. Dustin sighed. "I know it. Bob was his name? I know Bob seemed like a real living thing to you, but that's just how they're made. Rest assured that there are countless other biddies like it. Him, out there. Better ones even. The edgy line was flawed, as I'm sure you noticed." "You're wrong." Wipe. Dustin hesitated. This conversation wasn't going anywhere. He had the chip. It wasn't his job to make customers understand the nature of his company's products. This person wasn't even technically a customer anyway. He sighed again and placed some money on the table, then grabbed his bag. Time to exit. You work with biddies every day, right?" the person said, standing now, too. "Most days, yes," Dustin answered, making sure to keep some distance from the obviously distraught person. "How can you not notice they're alive? Sentient," they said. "What does sentience mean to you?" Oh boy. Of course this person, the biddy thief, would be one of those biddy rights nuts jobs. Well, sentience is the ability to feel, to have emotions. Like you and I. Biddies are a creation. They don't feel or have emotions." "How do you know?" I just do. I've seen them being created. They just don't have that." He started edging for the door. "They feel that they have feelings." "They may look like they do, but I assure you they don't." "Do you feel?" He stopped. What kind of question was that? "What? Of course I can." "Prove it." He stared at them, not sure what he could even say to that. "What proof do you have that you can feel and they can't? How are they any different from us?" They just are. I'm sorry, I have to go. Excuse me." Dustin could feel his ears burning. He really didn't want to have this conversation. He started to walk out of the diner. Is this how you can do what you do? You just ignore the evidence right in front of you and tell yourself that it's an illusion? Think about it. The person called to Dustin's back as he walked out the door. Sheesh, he shouldn't have been surprised the biddy thief was crazy. They had refused to return company property after all, even after being offered compensation, and a lot of it. And yet, they even refused the money, even though they in no way deserved to be compensated for stolen property. Dustin adjusted his bag on his shoulder and patted the pill vial in his pocket. He was glad that was over with. He was going to return the chip to his boss this afternoon, and then he was going out and having a drink to celebrate his continued employment. He wasn't going to let the crazy person get to him. But of course, as he drove, he thought about it, what they said. Truth be told, he had no idea how the biddies really worked. The biddy thief who delivered the chip definitely wasn't the person who arranged the meeting. The one who did arrange the meeting, the voice kind of sounded like what some of the other edgy biddies sounded like. He was sure the crazy biddy thief had somehow trained the edgy biddy to talk to him like that on the phone. But why would they? Why go through the trouble? Unless maybe that edgy biddy really independently... No, that was a dangerous rabbit hole of thought to go down. He shook off the idea. He was going to return the chip and have a nice, stiff drink and forget about this whole incident. He wasn't going to let weird ideas creep into his head. He just wasn't. Your point of view. You watched the Utigen guy leave, wiping your eyes with your sleeve. There was still dust on your fingers. It wasn't coming off. The waitstaff was shooting you worried looks, hesitating to even come over and take your order or collect the money from off of the table. Should you order something? You weren't hungry. The dust wasn't coming off your fingers, no matter how much you wiped them. You should leave. You stood up, and the booth chair creaked. Your shoes slightly stuck to the floor and made sticky noises after each step. The cold air stung your hot cheeks as you opened the door, making your way over to your car. You reached for the handle, noticing fine specks of dust were also on your sleeve. It wouldn't brush off. You felt covered in dust. You carefully got in your car, shivering all over. Carefully, you put your hand to your chest and held it there. He was still breathing. Cold, but breathing. Held safely against you under your sweater by a makeshift wrap. You still weren't sure if Bob would survive, but so far he had. You had to believe he would survive. Bob was strong. He had always been strong. He's alive! He lived! His name was Bob and continues to be Bob. Celebration. He lives! So, much to everybody's relief, he lives. Let me find, as a little celebration of this, let me find real quick my, hold up. I have a picture of, if you guys remember Dustin and Spot, Dustin's biddy. I drew a picture of it. There you go. Calcium Cat's pictures are significantly higher quality than my picture, but it was fun to draw anyway. Someone said they wanted to see a drawing of Spot. We can imagine that Spot gets adopted by someone else afterwards. Anyway, here we go. All right, Epilogue, Chapter 42, Epilogue. The final chapter. What a way to start it. We wish you a Merry Christmas, Ace sang as he presented a cheerful-looking plate of holiday cookies. It's February, you deadpanned. opening the door wider so Ace could come in. I know, but, we all didn't really get to celebrate Christmas together, and I wanted you to try this new recipe. It's vegan, pretty popular at the farmer's market. Well, obviously the holiday variety isn't as popular anymore, but they can be decorated for any season. Where should I put these? I told you not to bring anything, you sighed. He gave a lopsided grin and shrugged the shoulder not occupied by Indy and Canary. You noticed Indy was wearing a little Santa hat. Haha, I like the hat, Indy, you told him, and he signed, thanks. You were getting better at reading sign language. Bob tugged on your hair and signed something quickly. Too fast for you to see out of the corner of your eye. Hold on, back up a little on my shoulder and sign slower. Slower?
He said Ace's cookies are bound to taste better than yours, Canary translated, chuckling. Yeah, do I detect a burning odor?
You glared at Bob, and then Canary. Most of them are fine. Then to Ace, smiling. But it's nice to have more. Thank you. You took the tray from Ace, setting it on the kitchen table. It was nice being able to have another get-together at your place. Under better circumstances. Your coworkers would be there soon, too. All except Mary. You had invited her, but she said no. You had maybe been trying to befriend her, but she remained distant. That was okay. Nobody likes Mary. Bob, Indy, and Canary had taken up residence on the kitchen table, and all but Canary were signing back and forth. Canary laughed and added to the conversation out loud. Bob hadn't yet regained the ability to talk out loud, but it had only been a few months since the surgery. And since his surgery had never been attempted in another biddy before, as far as you all knew, who could say that his voice would never come back? You were hopeful it would. His recovery had been rough. He had come very close to dying on the operating table. Then the days and weeks following, more rough. You really didn't want to think about it. You sighed, looking over to where the biddies were probably plotting some prank. No doubt it would somehow involve poor Ace. Ace was probably thinking the same thing as he glanced at the biddies warily while helping you set out utensils and food. Bob, Canary, and Indy had grown closer over the last several weeks. As soon as Bob was able to handle it, Canary and Indy had insisted on visiting, which meant Ace was over a lot too. All three of them had been extremely supportive through everything. Even though Ace was having a rough time at his real job, as he called it, you had suggested that all five of you get an apartment, as it would make bills easier on everyone, and maybe he could quit his corporate job and just sell stuff at the farmer's market full-time. You wouldn't mind moving to a better apartment anyway. With you, Ace, and even Bob helping pay for things, you could all probably afford a better two-room apartment in a nicer area. Ace was still thinking about it. Bob had actually suggested the idea to you initially, to your surprise. He had changed a lot in the past several weeks. He was still himself, but somehow seemed more at peace with things, more secure. Like, even not being able to speak didn't really seem to rattle him like it did you at first. His attitude was very much like that time he had told you he was genuinely happy, when you all stared up at the clouds at the park a few months ago. But his attitude was like that most of the time now. He just seemed happy. Soon, Gary and Dr. Rivera arrived. Bob greeted Gary and gave Dr. Rivera a nod, who nodded back. Their customary greeting, as of late. It seemed since the surgery, Bob and the doc had formed sort of an unspoken friendship. While Dr. Rivera had not done any more surgery on biddies yet, you had overheard him at work talking to Miguel about possibly adding biddies to the patients he was willing to see. You had even overheard him poring over the ethics of treating biddies since they weren't pets, but he had seemed to reach the conclusion that no one else really would be willing to see them in the area. Big steps, considering his stance on them in the past. "So, when do you start school, dear?" Gary asked, taking a tentative bite of one of your cookies and failing to hide a wince. They couldn't be that bad. "This summer," you answered, taking a bite of one of Ace's cookies. "They were pretty good." Thanks to Bob and his apparently lucrative blog. Though I am planning on paying him back eventually. You called towards the kitchen, looking back. "No, you're not, idiot," he signed back, as he always did when you brought it up. "He said," Canary started. "I know what he said, thanks," you called back. "Though they are still just prerequisite classes. I'll have to pass those first before I apply to the LVT program." "You'll get in," Dr. Rivera said as he eyed the burnt edges of one of your cookies, pushing his glasses back up his nose. You frowned, picking up and taking a bite of one of the cookies you made. They were that bad. After everyone left, and you were... Oh, I'm sorry, I need to change the picture. There we go. Happy Bob. Hey, happy boy. After everyone left and you were done cleaning up, Bob signed asking if you wanted to play some Smash before going to sleep. "Nah, I have a better idea that's actually kind of related," you said, smiling and producing a small package from your pocket. "Merry Christmas." He looked at it, confused, signing, "It's not Christmas." "Yeah, well, as Ace said, you and I didn't really get to celebrate it either. So I figured in the spirit of the party, now would be just as good a time as any to give you your gift." He frowned at the tiny box, signing, "I didn't get you anything. Not fair." "Whatever. You're only letting me borrow money for my classes. And no, I am paying you back eventually. Open your gift." He sighed, peeling back the paper and then frowning again at the tiny note inside. "Look out the back window." He gave you a confused look, and you pointed to the window in your room, where he ported and then gasped. You laughed, going over to join him, rubbing his head with your finger and carefully avoiding the little nick in his skull. It was barely noticeable now. "I figure if you're quick, you can destroy this thing before anyone comes out and tries to stop us or calls in a complaint." "When did you do this?" "When I was walking out to say goodbye to everyone. I picked it up a few days ago after work and had it hidden in the car. I know you've always wanted to smash this horrid thing. And no, don't worry about it, it really wasn't expensive. Believe it or not, the grocery store had it on clearance because they are rearranging the flower display and no longer had room for the gaudy thing. Plus, it already had a chip in it. They were practically giving it away. So, smash away!" Haha, Bob was looking at you with giant pupils and grinning maniacally. He hugged your hand before quickly porting outside the now open window, and wow, he made really quick work of that giant awful vase. Hearing the breaking sounds was actually oddly satisfying, even for you. A few apartment lights came on, but Bob was back in the room huffing and puffing and doubled over silently laughing before anyone could see him. You'd have to clean up the mess tomorrow. But it was worth it. This is Bob's blog. According to F. Scott Fitzgerald, there are all kinds of love in this world. But you know what? No, this is Bob's blog. I'll read it in his voice. According to F. Scott Fitzgerald, there are all kinds of love in this world, but never the same love twice. Hell, the ancient Greeks had 8 different categories of love they defined. I guess what I'm getting at is, no one can really define love for each and every being. It comes in all different types. Love is just a word. What really matters are the actions and sentiments, the feelings behind it, a connection of souls. Anyway, I'll stop boring you fuckers and get on with something more interesting. Let's explore how easy it is to hack road signs. Bite my bitty sacrum. Date. Special thanks on the How to Reprogram Electronic Road Signs guide from Indigo Montoya of Bittybones 2. Alright. There's the final message from the author, Llewellyn. I want to say again, real quick, thank you, Llewellyn, for giving me permission to dub your fantastic fic. And I'm sorry if I've been mispronouncing your name this entire time. I've tried my best. I hope that I've done your story justice. I've tried. It's a wonderful story. I hope that everybody watching has enjoyed it so far. I have my own, heavily inspired by this, not nearly as long, that I'm gonna finish eventually. I have a lot of it written, but that'll be done in the reading corners, the Dale's Reading Corner, if you want to listen to that or read it online. There are links to that in the description. But yeah, if you can, you don't even need an account. Go over to Archive of Our Own, where the fic is posted, and everybody go leave a comment. Leave a comment. You can leave it as a guest. You don't even have to sign in. Leave a comment telling Llewellyn how great her story is and how much you guys have enjoyed it. Because I didn't write this. I want to emphasize, because some people tell me it's a great story. They think I wrote it. Llewellyn wrote this, not me. Thank you again to everybody on the Discord who joined for this last live reading. It was really fun. I'm happy that I didn't mess up. I didn't flub as much as I thought I was going to flub, because it was a couple difficult chapters. If any of you guys have a fic that you've written that you'd like to see dubbed, let me know. I'll give it a look. Can't promise anything, but I'll give it a look. I don't really have a graceful way to end it besides that, so I'll just stop before I say something embarrassing. Alright. Bye, everybody. Until next time.